and welcome back to the crawl wall from the Chinese Grand Prix. And what an exciting race that was. Absolutely amazing. And Daniel Ricciardo took the win after a brilliant pit stop strategy by the team and some amazing overtakes by himself. In true Ricciardo form, we're going to do a shoey. This might go horribly wrong because this is a manky old trainer. I've not got champagne, sorry, it's just water. But nonetheless, we'll give it a go. Right, here we go. Oh, God. Yeah, we'll leave that for now. I'll come back to that later. Yes, so Daniel Ricciardo took the win at the Chinese Grand Prix after an amazing start, an amazing race and an amazing strategy by those Red Bull boys, double stacking the drivers twice and did a brilliant pit stop behind the safety car to enable them to leapfrog pretty much the entire field and of course bag the win. So a faultless race by Daniel Ricciardo. Those overtakes he did were amazing. There were that move on Bottas, that was incredible for the race lead. Bottas squeezed him and he was fully committed up the inside there. He was gonna get the win or he was gonna be out trying, but it paid off. An amazing race, and Daniel Ricciardo proved to his teammate Verstappen that you can overtake and not have contact and not go off the track. So for that reason, Daniel Ricciardo, I'm going to award him 10 points because he won the race, and then it's going to be 2 bonus points for the amazing overtake. So for Daniel Ricciardo, the race winner is going to be 12 points. Next up was, of course, Valtteri Bottas. Looked like he had the race in the bag at one stage after leapfrogging Vettel in the pit stops. Ferrari not with it this weekend with the pit stop strategy, but nonetheless, Bottas, brilliant race. Unfortunate, they didn't have time to pit, they didn't have time to react to the safety car to put a new set of tyres on. They'd already gone round the final corner when the safety car was called. That's just one of those things. An unfortunate thing for Bottas not to win the race today, but a solid second place, out-qualifying his teammate Hamilton as well for the second time in a row, it's worth noting. And yeah, he's firmly put himself back on the Mercedes radar now, hasn't he, as deserving to be there. Australia was poor performance for him, but it looks like he's got the measure of his teammate this past couple of races, which is good to see by Bottas' standards. So, Valtteri Bottas, I'm going to award him 9 points. I think he had a brilliant race. Just 1 mark off the 10 because he didn't win. I know that's harsh, but it's called the crawl wall. Bottas, 9 points for you. No stretch of the imagination, that was a fantastic race. Next up was Kimi Räikkönen, and that, for me personally, means it was an all-second driver podium. Because Helmut Marko loves Max Verstappen, so Ricciardo won. You know Mercedes love Hamilton, so that's Bottas P2. And then Kimi Räikkönen in B3. And yes, the Ferrari's golden boy struggling with the tyres and then promptly rammed out the way, shall we say. But we'll get to that in a minute. But for Kimi Räikkönen, brilliant performance, got pushed off the track effectively at the start by Sebastian Vettel, squeezing him, so he had to lift off into the first turn, and that meant that he dropped down to P4. Then they kept him out way longer than he should have done to try and hold Bottas up because they made a mistake in the pit stops, which then dropped him to P6, so he was already playing the Ferrari team game from an early stage. And then all the misfortune and carnage happened for the other drivers after the safety car, and that prompted him back up to P3. A well-deserved podium, I'm going to say that now. Qualified P2, out-qualified by his teammate by less than 1/10 of a second. But it's worth noting that it was a fantastic weekend by Kimi's standards in terms of the end result and the qualifying result. And it was unfortunate that Ferrari ballsed up the pit strategy but then tried to help Vettel instead of trying to recover points for both cars. So karma in the end paid dividends and it came good for Räikkönen. So a solid 9 points for him as well. I like Kimi, and it's good to see him outscore his teammate. Next up in P4 was Lewis Hamilton, of course, and lonely race by his standards, really. Slipped down to P5 at the start, losing out to Max Verstappen, of course. Again, didn't really have the performance, missed out. They didn't bother pitting him under the safety car. Yeah, they had the option to pit him, did Mercedes, but unfortunately quite didn't manage it. They didn't bother in the end, and it's proved to be costly with both Red Bulls finishing on track ahead of him, but ended up P4, benefited from, of course, the Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel collision. So, Lewis Hamilton, out-qualified by your teammate, out-raced by your teammate. So, for that reason, I'm going to award you 6 points. I think it was an okay race, but not a brilliant one. Next up, of course, P5 was Max Verstappen. Oh dear, oh dear. Verstappen really needs to sort itself out. This is 2 races in a row now where we've seen needless collisions. It was the much faster car on those soft tyres, but did a silly move, or tried to attempt a silly move around the outside of Hamilton, which put himself off the track, and that gave Ricciardo the upper hand. And then he just tried a desperate attempt at getting past Vettel, and both spun at the turn 14, the hairpin. It was just such a shame to see, because the car had the pace. It was on the back of Raikkonen and Bottas again by the end of the race, and after a spin, he got the faster tyre. He just needed to chill out a bit. You know, it's okay risking it and pushing it, but you had plenty of time. But he just forced the issue too much. Like we saw in Bahrain with him trying to push Hamilton off the track and it didn't work. Max Verstappen, I'm sorry, but your teammate finished P1. You could have been P1 as well had you not had those couple of offs, and it would have certainly been a Red Bull 1-2 whatever happened, but you cost that for the team today. So for that reason, I'm only going to award you, well, I'm going to award you nothing actually. Sod that, you're getting nothing. Next up was Nico Hülkenberg. P6 after qualifying P7 yet again for the 6th consecutive race, including last season of course. And P6 finishing ahead of the struggling Vettel after the spin, and was the best of the B teams really. A great race by his standards, a quiet race, didn't really see much of him. A bit of battling at the start of course, like we see for many of the drivers, but just kept it clean, kept it tidy, kept it honest. As I keep saying, is a solid driver is Hülkenberg. So for that reason, I'm going to score Hülkenberg a solid 8 points. He's starting to gain 1 point every race he's gained so far, so hopefully he can get a bit higher up or a better qualifying position next race, and I'll give him some more. Next up was Fernando Alonso in P7. It was an okay race. I mean, qualified P13 and P14 again, the McLaren boys did, but Alonso and that car and the team just seem to have a good strategy that works to be able to put them in the lower half of the points. It's not a double points finish for him this time like it was the last 2 races, but P7 nonetheless is a good result. Did a rather robust move on Vettel, I must admit, and Martin Brundle for some reason said it was an okay move and it was fine, there was nothing wrong with it, but Vettel was there and he just shoved him off the track. That for me is what Verstappen's been doing, and he's been criticised for it, but Alonso does it and it's fine. So I thought that was a bit of bias there, certainly from Martin Brundle, saying that move was fine. I don't think it was worthy of a penalty or anything, but it's certainly worth noting that it's okay for him to push cars off the track, but not Verstappen. So for that reason, I am going to award Fernando Alonso, I'm going to award him 8 points, because it was a brilliant race. I mean, the qualifying pace wasn't there, but that's not happened for 2 races, so that looks to be more of a car issue than a driver issue. And in the race, he bagged the points, so great result. Next up in P8, of course, was Sebastian Vettel. After leading the race, Ferrari got it wrong with the strategy and then slipped down to P2. The safety car came out, the charging Red Bulls got past, and then one ploughed into him. To be honest, he was magnanimous in defeat as well. I've just saw the interview and he said, look, it cost Verstappen's race more than it cost mine. He was expecting to slip down the field anyway. Don't think he'd have expected P8 though, let's be honest. I certainly think he'd have finished ahead of his main championship rival Lewis Hamilton, of course, but it's early in the season. I suppose he's got to expect these things coming, and yeah, of course, he's disappointed, but I was quite pleased because I was expecting him to kick off. I would have done, but he didn't. I know I say I don't like moaning, but at that situation I would have kicked off. But nonetheless, he didn't, and I felt it was a good drive by him. He got pole, of course, as well, which is worth noting. And Ferrari looked strong this weekend, but just didn't deliver in the race, and that's where you've got to deliver, isn't it? So for that reason, I'm going to award Vettel 8 points, because I think he should have done a bit more just to hold off from, you know, Hülkenberg and Alonso. I know his tyres were fading, but he's in a Ferrari. You know what I mean? He's in a Ferrari. I think he could have done a little bit more. Of course, the car may have been damaged. I fully appreciate that, but nonetheless, I just felt Sebastian could have maybe tried a bit harder at the end. Next up was Carlos Sainz bagging P9, a double points finish for Renault for the 2nd time this season, and beating his best result of P10 this season, so 1 place further up. In the shadows of his teammate once again, though, is worth noting, and yeah, he doesn't seem to really have the performance that Hülkenberg has. I know Hülkenberg's been there an extra season, of course, but nonetheless, Sainz, I felt he would do more at this stage with Renault. I mean, he's close to scoring more points than Palmer ever has had in that car, and he had 2 seasons at it. But there you go. We'll see him later, of course, Jolyon Palmer. But yes, Carlos Sainz is okay. He got a better result. He qualified in the top 10 as well. So for that reason, I'm going to award him 6 points. But in the shadows of your teammate Hülkenberg. Collecting the final point was K-Mag, And yeah, a difficult race for Haas, it must be said. He didn't get through into Q3, qualified 11th, losing out to his teammate. But in the race he managed to grab the final point, and for Haas that's a really strange one because we were expecting Haas to be well up there, weren't we, after Australia? But there we go, that's how the times are changing. We can't predict the grid, can we, this season? Let's be honest, we cannot predict the field at all. It's such a close and crazy one. But nonetheless, Kevin Magnussen, he scored a point, wasn't anything special. So for that reason I'm awarding 6 points. Next up was the Force India boys, and I was expecting them to score points this weekend, I really was, after Perez qualified 8th and Ocon in 12th. You know, it was good to see them up there and into Q3 once again with one of the cars and just outside with the other. But Perez had a difficult start, got pushed wide by Alonso, I think it was, at the early point, and held up Ocon, unfortunately. I mean, Ocon was just there at the wrong time, really, and that was unfortunate to see, but 11th and 12th, the progress is sort of there, but just get some points, you know. So Sergio Perez, he got into Q3 and scored 8th place, so for that reason I'm going to award him 7 points, and Esteban Ocon qualified 12th and then finished in 11th, so for that reason I'm going to award him 6 points. Next up was Stoffel van Dorn, and of course qualified P13 and P14, they're both McLaren, so you can't really judge that, that was just how they qualified. But in the race, he had a late pit stop on the soft tyres, the only stop he had, and then just didn't really recover to the points-paying positions, finishing P13 in the end. Like I said, in the shadows as his teammate, so for that reason, it's going to be 5 points. I think the car's not quite got the performance, but I think he deserved to be up there a little bit more. He should have been in the points, or at least 11th somehow. Next up was Lance Stroll, P14. Bloody hell, and we had 19 finishers. Hallelujah. Yeah, finishing P14 after qualifying P something or other, 18 I think it was. I'm not really interested, but he finished ahead of cars, I suppose, so I can't be too harsh on him, can I? So for that reason I'm going to award him 2 points. Hooray! Points on the board, points on the board. Next up was his teammate Sirotkin. Oh my god, how many are they ahead of? Wow, they're ahead of some names there. And yeah, Sirotkin, I think he qualified something or other as well and finished in 15th. So yeah, well done to Sergei Sirotkin, and I'll give him 2 points as well. Brilliant. Wow, more points on this board than they have in the actual championship. Hooray! Well done. Next up was Marcus Ericsson, firm back markers this weekend by the looks of things, wasn't it? By the Saubers and the Toro Rossos as well, and they're coming up now. But Marcus Ericsson qualified last, then got a 5-place grid penalty for not obeying double yellow flags. So got a 5-place grid penalty on 20th, so he started 20th. Brilliant stuff, well done. They didn't implement the MotoGP ruling where they gave him a 50-yard advantage. That was a farce. But anyway, moving back on to Marcus Ericsson's race. A lonely race, a quiet race, and yeah, he did alright, I suppose. It was difficult to judge where they were today, like I said, firmly at the back, after a strong performance at Bahrain, but nonetheless, I'm going to award him 5. He's getting 5 as well. I don't know where he was. I didn't really see. Next up, Roman Grosjean, after 2 pit stops, I believe his tyres were just absolutely shot and had to pit again, but no points for Grosjean yet. You wouldn't have said that, would you? You wouldn't have said that, but nonetheless, no points for Grosjean this race once again, and yeah, I'm gonna score him 2 points. 2 points for Grosjean. It was a poor race by Haas's standards this weekend, and Grosjean was firmly outraced by his teammate who just made the tyres work. I know obviously, of course, Magnussen being 11th meant he had a free choice of tyres, but come on, Grosjean, you've got a bloody Ferrari engine in the back of that, and it's working well. Next up was Pierre Gasly, and wow, talk about hero to zero. It's almost as hero to zero as when Antonio Giovinazzi raced for Sauber, had a brilliant result at Bahrain, and then an absolutely shocking day at China. Or, as David Croft likes to call him, Giovinazzi. Yeah, I know, Giovinazzi. That's what he called him in practice and qualifying. Giovinazzi. Jesus Christ. And people call me for calling Vettel. You know what I mean? Giovinazzi, Jesus Christ. Anyway, back onto the driver in mention. It was Pierre Gasly, and yeah, he crashed into his teammate. That's a cardinal sin in my eyes. And yeah, hero to zero as well, which of course isn't brilliant. Pierre Gasly in the end finishing P18, of course. Yeah, taking out your teammate, cardinal sin. I'm not going to go for it. I'm not having it at all. So I'm going to award him 0 points for Pierre Gasly. You don't hit your teammate. That wasn't Hartley's fault. I don't care if he got a penalty. You just don't hit your teammate. And last of the finishers was Charles Leclerc, or as David Croft would like to say, So, a bad race really, in his standards, I must be honest. He out-qualified his teammate, it must be said, for the first time. Only qualifying 19th, of course, so pretty much nil and void. And then in the race, a lonely race, and had a spin as well. He also had a spin in practice, and a spin in qualifying. So, yeah, just a bit disappointing from Leclerc. He just seems to be overdriving and trying to... I know there's a lot of pressure on him to do well, he's a Ferrari protege, but just calm it down a bit. Just calm it down a bit. You're in a Sauber, okay? Chill out. You know, just focus on working race by race. Let's not try and be a superstar, 3 races into the season. Just chill out. I knew he would probably be, as I said on the testing crawl wall, probably would be behind his teammate for the first part of the season and then build on it. But I didn't expect him to be having this many inconsistencies. So, just chill it out, calm it down a bit, and I'm sure you'll deliver. But he didn't deliver in China, so I'm going to award him just 2 points for that. And the only retirement of the race, I'm disappointed that he did retire as well, because it would have been nice to see all 20 cars finishing just for the 8th time, I believe, in Formula One's history, if that had have happened. And I don't think it'll be happening later on in the season, so this was its chance, but it didn't, unfortunately. And it was Brendan Hartley, and we're not sure why he retired at this moment in time, of course, at the time of recording, but nonetheless, not a bad race by his standards. Well, I say not a bad race, it was a bad race really, wasn't it? But the Honda just didn't look to be there today, and it's sad to see. He kept himself out of trouble until his teammate ploughed into him, and that wasn't his fault. But I'm going to have to award him just a middle-of-the-road 5, because he retired, of course. I know he out-qualified his teammate as well, Gasly, which is just poor to see by him. But nonetheless, an average race. There we go. Right, it's that time again. It's time for Palmer of the Week. So let me just go grab Jolyon, and I'll be back in a minute. Come on, Jolyon, you're late again. Jolyon! Jolyon! Come on, man, you're keeping them waiting as always. Here he is, everyone. It's Jolyon Palmer for Palmer of the Week. Here he comes. He's struggling to find the drivers by the looks of things. And there he goes. He has awarded Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly. Can I have my hat back, please? Stay there, Jolyon. Come on now. Right, thanks for coming, Jolyon. See you later. So there we go. He has awarded Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly Palmer of the Week. I think we're fully aware why those are. Of course, Max Verstappen driving into everything, and Pierre Gasly driving into his teammates. So there we go. That is the crawl wall. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Of course, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below as always. I love hearing your thoughts. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Much love. Right then, let's do some poses. Oh, I don't know what else to do.